Good morning, everybody, and welcome to South Coast Summit. It's so great to see so many people here. I'm literally speechless, but I've lived so much of my life in Microsoft Teams like everybody has over the past 18 months. And my team, they only communicate in GIFs. So in the words of one of my team members, that's how excited we are. It's a big change, everybody. I had to remember that I'm going to be seen from the waist upwards today, so I had to put a reminder just to put my trousers on this morning. But just remember that some people are not used to the contact, so there's badges, little stickers you can stick on your badge. If you're green, come in for the hug. If you're red, a little bit more space. So let's just bear that in mind. So I just want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to so many people. Thank you to the sponsors. Without the sponsors, we wouldn't be here today. Thank you to the event team, the organizers, the speakers, the attendees, everybody. Thanks for coming here and coming to see us today. So the last one I want to just thank is everybody here. None of us signed up to be part of the problem that we've been in over the last 18 months, but everybody in this room is part of the solution. So whether you've been helping healthcare to get doctors and nurses working, scientists working on vaccines and all of those kind of things, whether you've been working with our customers to get teachers, colleges, schools, universities all working so that the little people can keep learning and the big people can stay sane, thank you. If you've been working with businesses to help them reimagine what that world of work looks like, to adapt their processes, to move them onto Teams, 250 million monthly active users on Teams, thank you. But that's all in the past now. We're all looking forward. How do we get people back in the office? How do we make sure that everybody's safe and we know where we can work in that hybrid way? And that's where you all come in. So today we've got three great speakers. We've got Richard Potter, who's the Director of Digital Strategy. He's going to be talking to you about innovation. We've got Helen Wilson, who is the Director of Modern Work Customer Success, and she's going to be talking to you about hybrid work, what we've learned in Microsoft, what we're seeing with our customers, etc. And then lastly, we've got Dona, Sarkar, who's going to talk to us about making sure we're doing all of this in an accessible way, and she's the Director of Accessible Technology at Microsoft. So I'm going to be back on at the end just to make sure that everybody goes off on the right way, but I'm going to hand over now to Richard, who is going to start his talk. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Whoa, fantastic. Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. Good work. Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing us to be part of such a special event. And Aaron and Nathan, well done. Well done for making all this happen. It's been a terrific experience for all of us so far. I'm Richard Potter. I spend most of my day job working with some of Microsoft's biggest clients around the world, and most of my work at the moment is around confidence, because the world is nuts at the moment. If you're planning, if you're setting strategy, if you're thinking about investment in the future, how on earth are you navigating this world that we live in at the moment? And we, from a Microsoft point of view, want our customers to move forward all the time. And that big motor for moving forwards for all these customers is confidence. And it's generally confidence around innovation. So I thought what I'd do this morning, just to kick us off, and we've got some terrific content with Helen and Dona coming in a moment, but I just thought I'd give you the innovation perspective of what we're seeing in Microsoft at the moment, and what it means in terms of the way that we're building our product, how we're taking our product to market, and how we're engaging with the world at large. So I'm going to show you some stories. Let's start with this. Clearly, our world has changed. Our world has changed remarkably, utterly, but rapidly. The speed with which we went through this process, the speed with which that dynamism is still within this process at the moment is absolutely terrifying. It's a world where we have existed remotely for a good part of it. We've been distant from each other. Our cubicles have been vacated. We've been inhabiting our dining room tables, our kitchen breakfast bars, and those cupboards under the stairs, trying to still be productive. But whilst we've been remote, we've remained connected. It's a beautiful little image. This is a graph taken from our workplace analytics. This is Microsoft's connections throughout the pandemic. This is how we were navigating our own contacts through Office 365 and all of our different social connections. And we were keeping that connection and that dynamism going incredibly effective because we've got these incredibly powerful platforms that drive that connectivity for all of us. So whilst we have been remote, persisting in that connection has been a really strong feature of everything that we've done over the past months. We've been open. We've been open to threats as well, because that connection has been a digital connection. That openness has let our guard down sometimes. This image here does my head in. It appeared sometime really on, I think, late March 2020. This comes in my Twitter feed, and I go, wow. This is cyber criminals preying on the fact that if they can put ZOOM into a URL, we're more likely to click on that URL. Let's get over the fact that it's Zoom, never mind that. But this is what happens when we let our guard down in pursuit of that relentless connectivity that we're trying to achieve. But the world has remained closed for a good part of it. Despite the fact that we've been open, that closed world has meant that physical experience have been limited. Those business models that depend on us getting out to cinemas, to leisure clubs, to things like that, that whole world of business canvas and landscape has been transformed. But there's also something in that closure that makes it even more complicated. It's an unpredictable closure. It's an unanticipatable closure. We don't know from one week to the next which bit of our society is physically open or closed or not. How on earth can we make the decisions to enable us to keep that money coming in our businesses? The other thing that we've noticed, and this image literally, folks, is the gift that keeps on giving. There's hidden depths every time you look at this image. But we've realized that one size very much does not fit all. In a moment, Helen's going to be unpacking some of the really important personas that we're identifying in hybrid working, and you'll see that very vividly. Whatever you think of this image, we live in a world where everybody's going to find their own way through it. And we've got to think about how we respond in this world with solutions that work for everybody, all of that diversity that we need to come out of this crisis successfully. But we've been together, and it wouldn't be a Microsoft conference without a good plug for a Teams feature here. Together Mode, when we rolled out Together Mode in Teams, was recognizing the fact that despite the fact that we're individuals, we're a human species that likes to be together. We measured it in terms of the fatigue that we experience in our Teams calls, the difference between our experience when you put us in those little square boxes and when you orient us with bits of furniture like we're together. We see that. These are really sophisticated features of our dynamics of human beings that we have to have the ability, if we're going to be successful around our confident innovation posture in the future, we have to have the ability to understand all of this complexity that's sitting in there. We're going to talk about hybrid working in a moment, but let's just recognize the yin and the yang of hybrid working. Hybrid working from home has been incredibly valuable for many of us. I recall a speech that Martha Lane Fox gave at a huge conference many years ago where she very vividly described the world of work as being a world of work that had been built, made, sustained by men, for men. The temporal nature of work, the hours that we worked, the sizes of furniture, the lightings in the rooms, the positions of buttons, all of that was built for a single demographic. Those of us that are now able to find spaces, times, environments within which we can be productive appreciate the fact that we work from home. But the other side of it is that home comes with us quite often when we work. And beyond the frivolousness of my dog Reg walking in halfway through an important keynote that I'm giving to a customer, beyond that frivolousness, the ability for us to be able to juggle some of the demands and the real pressures that we feel at home in competing and mixing this blended lifestyle of work and life together. It requires really, really deep telemetry and understanding in order for us to act effectively in that space. So let's just recognize the fact that this is an incredibly challenging environment. If you're a store on the high street and you're trying to do business, you've got to dig deep into your entrepreneurial energy and mojo to keep going in this world. But there is hope. This image here is the one that kept me going throughout much of the crisis. Came out very early on. It's an image about a petting zoo in Northern California called Sweet Farm, who realized very quickly in lockdown no one was going to come and pet the animals. They were going to lose that entry fee revenue that they get through this process. So they put llamas and goats online. And you could pay $50 to get a llama to come and join you on your conference call. Naked pandemic entrepreneurism. That's what's going to get us through. But let's unpack what that entrepreneurism is. Just very quickly, I want to leave you with 3 things that describe the way that innovation is happening confidently as we're coming out and how Microsoft is driving that for its customers worldwide. We have been innovating. That is the energy that is taking us out of this crisis and beyond. But we've been innovating in 3 distinctive ways. Firstly, we've been putting telemetry in everything so that we can learn and make sense of this crazy world that sits around us. Viva Topics in Teams is part of that. We want to be able to understand and make sense and apply all of that great cognitive horsepower that sits inside our cloud to understand the changing dynamics about discussions and knowledge as it's being shared in our environments. So we've been learning, but we've also been experimenting. We've created environments like Power Apps where we can experiment at very low cost, very safely within guardrails that are still compliant, that enable low-code, non-specialist people to experiment readily, fastly, cheaply in this world. And finally, when we've done those experiments successfully, we've been scaling. We've been building out all of these things within a broader platform experience that means that all of that great non-functional requirement that we need to deliver this at scale across the globe, across diverse organizations, meeting the needs of individual profiles in our organizations along the way, that is what's getting us through this crisis and beyond. We're learning, we're experimenting, and we're scaling confidently into the future. So some of those features that you're recognizing inside Microsoft's platform, inside the own solutions that you're building on Microsoft's platforms, and all of those great successes that you're doing in the world, absolutely reflect that journey of confident innovation through learn, experiment, and scale. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I hope you're going to have a terrific day. To carry on the conversation, I'm going to hand over to Helen Wilson. Can you give her a big hand?
Good morning, everybody. In true Microsoft style, I want to take a selfie, so could you please all wave in 3? You ready? Thank you very much. You will all be on LinkedIn very shortly. So if you're not meant to be here, let me know, okay? Okay, so I'm Helen Wilson. I lead the Modern Work customer success team for Microsoft in the UK. I have a team of about 80 customer success managers and customer engineers, and our our purpose is to really make sure that our customers get the value of the investment that they've made. But I want to talk a little bit more about hybrid working. And I think, 2020 was the year that we all saw this mass experiment going on. And for most of us, productivity, it was a real nice thing to see that productivity didn't drop. We had more time with our families. Some got time to exercise. But actually, we all had the challenges of home and work and juggling all of those things together. So, we're trying to prepare for a multitude of different things in a really, really interesting environment. And I think what we did conclude was that we can be successful, and we know one is going to achieve this perfect hybrid working environment. So we're in this stage where we're all experiment together, and we're still a long way from doing that. So as we start to go back to the office, I'm hearing from our customers that we do want well-being and inclusivity to be top of mind. We still want to be innovative, and we're all in this together. I'm hearing extremes from everyone's back in the office to nobody's in the office, and actually just trying to find out what that balance is and making that work for organizations. And these are some of the thoughts that we've been seeing as we go through. So we're just out at the starting gates. We're still learning, we're still experimenting, and we know as we return back to our premises now, we know that hybrid work is the future. We know that we need to bring the best of digital with the best of virtual into that workplace and make it a really inclusive place. And kind of empowering that autonomy of remote work. So as we start to think about going back, and we really need to think about how do we make sure that we create this inclusive, trusted, secure environment where everybody has a voice and we can all be part of that journey together. But we know that one size isn't going to fit all. We do need a clear strategy to be able to adapt to this changing world. We know that access to talent remains highly competitive. So as we think about returning back into the workplace, start to think about where do our people live? Do we really care where our people live anymore? And really start to open up that market. I had a great conversation at dinner last night with Steve actually about apprentices and the graduates and just the innovation that they can bring into your business. So how do we attract that great talent, and how do you become the workplace that people want to work at? So thinking about that secure environment and making sure that we attract that great new talent into the world. So we have this opportunity now to change. If you think about the benefits we've already seen, we've seen reduced commuting. That has been amazing. I don't know how many of you got stuck on the M3 coming here yesterday or this morning, maybe not so bad on a Saturday. We've had reduced energy in large office spaces. We've also had, this brief respite on the full carbon impact through lack of business international travel. So how do we take those gains into the new workplace, but also take with us the best of what we had before? And I think as we start to really think about that, how do we drive that sustainable growth, foster that accessible, inclusive environment? And leaders have this opportunity now to really think about that and move forward into the new world. But there's this paradox. All of the surveys that are coming back are saying that 71% of people want to, really want to work remotely. And then we have the other one, which is 62% saying they want to come back to work. So even with my maths, we can work out that that doesn't add up. So how do we make sure that, that actually what we're hearing here is that people want extreme flexibility. So how do we offer that as we return back? So in Microsoft, we've been learning as we've been going along the way, and we've had some amazing things that have come out during this time. And I think what I'd like to share with you is just a couple of things that we've done through remote working. So first of all, to give you some kind of context, we have 6,000 employees in the UK. We're across over 400 career disciplines. So that's a lot of people when you think hybrids that we're trying to meet, and they've all got different changing needs. And then obviously we're split across 48 different locations in the UK. So really thinking about how do we consider all of those different things. And I was surprised to see how many career disciplines we actually had in the UK subsidiary. So our leadership team throughout COVID have anchored themselves on these 4 pillars. So first and foremost, the health of our employees, the physical, the mental, and actually the emotional well-being is our top priority. Secondly, how do we make sure that we create an environment where it's great to be remote, it's also a great environment when you come into the workplace. We know that we've got people in our workplace that need to be in the office, that home working is just not working for them. And then, how do we serve our customers at this critical time and make sure that they thrive in this environment? And then lastly, we think about meeting and exceeding the regulations. So whether that's government, whether that's the health organization, we want to look at always meeting and exceeding. So I'll give you a great example of that. Anyone from Microsoft, hopefully you've done this. We had to get permission to come here today. So that's some of the things that we're doing to make sure we safeguard. Is there anybody who hasn't done that? But we know that there's different experiences for everybody. So, we've got people in the perfect setup. So anyone that I've presented with in the last 20 months, and you've seen a window into my home office. I've got a great home office setup. But I know that that's not the norm. When I think about that we've got the home chaos, juggling work and school and all those other things and commitments that we have, that was everywhere, trying to get enough tech to source to be able to meet those demands. We have the lonely worker. This persona is really isolated and really needs to get back into the workplace. I also think about my early in careers, and they had this dream of a year in industry, and actually they had a year from their bedrooms and never met their peers that they came into the organization with. And then our key workers, they're incredible. They didn't even have the choice to remote work. So how do we make sure we don't get this divide that happens between key workers and the information workers in the office? And then lastly, our new starters, whether that's an early in career or new into Microsoft, we've onboarded just over 25,000 people globally during the pandemic, which is just phenomenal to think that all of those people, but they just don't have that opportunity to walk the floors of the office, to have those serendipity moment on the stairs and to meet new people and make those connections. So they're onboarding and they're learning in a really small circle. So how do we think about making sure that we're inclusive to them? And then if you think about all of those different personas, it's so critical that leaders in organizations don't build their hybrid working strategy on their lived experience of what they're going through. Because if I built my experience of what I think my team should be doing based on my home office and set up, it would be very different to maybe one of my early in careers. So really mindful of how we do that. And in actual fact, we ran on our last virtual offsite a session with all of our teams to help understand how do they want to work in the future, when are those touch points that we want to get back, because there's no point in that coming from senior leadership. That needs to be driven by the team and it be inclusive to all. So just to kind of finish off, this is our framework for hybrid working. So taking, it's not simply taking the digital into, or turning what we did in person into a digital form. There needs to be consideration. So really thinking about how can we transform across and take the advantages of all the things that we've learnt along the way. So people, thinking about your people, your places and your processes, and then wrapping around that your leadership, your culture. And I think the big wrapper for me is experimentation, because we're all learning together. So learn fast, fail fast, go on to the next thing, and really have that experimental mindset as you go in to build your strategy. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Dona. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Okay, so first, I don't know how to keep this microphone on, so that's going to be challenge 1. I just learned that South Coast Summit is new, that Aaron and Nathan just put this together. It was an idea they came up with, obviously, in a pub. And they organized this in the pandemic, and this is their first year doing it. Can we give like the biggest round of applause in the world for that? Because, yeah. And they've cajoled like very legit keynote speakers. The sessions are amazing, and the sponsors just off the hook. So congratulations, folks. You did amazing. Thank you so much for letting me crash your conference from across the pond, as you call it, letting me crash your conference. So we've talked about what hybrid work is. Then we talked about how, like, what is hybrid work? Why is it important? And now we're going to talk about how to do it. My vision of hybrid work is a little weird. Okay, it's a bit weird. In the picture here, you're seeing 4 examples of hybrid work that I have done in my career. There is my office, which I'm not sitting at a desk, but rather on the garbage can. I don't know why. Then there's that Microsoft hackathon, where I do some of my best work, inventing new things. There's the third one, which is in some random country coaching a customer with something. And the fourth one, which has been the last year and a half, which is legitimately in my closet at home. So if you've had a meeting with me, you know that I am in my closet at home, and that is the closet that I have all my meetings in. So this is my hybrid work. The most important thing I have learned from doing hybrid work all these years, but also over the past 18 months when everyone has had to shift to this, is that your team and your customers have a very different lived-in experience than you. What does that mean? That means that their internet speeds are very different than yours, or how often they even get internet. Their home and life situation is very different. I don't have kids, so I can sit in my closet and do work all day. That's not true for most people. Their accessibility and disability is different. I don't need captions, but that's not true for most people. So when you think about home and life, we really have to keep in mind where people come from. This picture here is my current leadership team. These are my peers. Everybody in this team has been touched by disability in some way or the other. Jessica, the woman sitting down, is in a wheelchair. Jenny, my boss, Jenny Lay-Fleury, standing next to Jessica, is deaf. There are people with neurodivergence, people with mental health stuff. I have dyslexia. All of us having a team lunch on a patio. Before we organized the lunch place, we had to make sure it had a ramp so Jessica could come. We had to make sure that we could face each other so Jenny could lip read. This is my new normal. This is my new normal. And I think this is going to be the normal for many, many people. So we go all the way back to the thing I've said for probably 10 years, which is do not create 4. Don't create 4 people and expect it to work. Whether it's your customer or your team, instead, co-create with. So this is a picture from one of the great late nights out in Prague in 2019 with Mr. Simon Owen holding the camera because he's the only one tall enough to hold this camera. And he's right here. And this was a customer advisory board event for the Power Platform team. So the Power Platform leadership had come, and they were doing a co-create session with members of our community. So we stayed up way too late and talked a lot about what is low-code, how does it work, how does it actually apply in organizations. So we have been doing co-creating for a long time, and honestly, it is probably one of my favorite things in the world about the tech industry. So what does co-creating mean? You want to co-create your hybrid style with your team, and you want to co-create your products and services with your customers. This means do not make something, ship it to them, and expect it to work. That's just going to go badly. Ask me how I know. I worked on Windows 8. So, no, really. Trust me, I worked. So, just for context, I worked on Vista, Win 7, Win 8, Win 8.1, Win 10, and HoloLens. So I know a lot about co-creating and what not to do. So back in the day, in Microsoft, the way we used to ship products is us engineers would, hide in Building 9 in Redmond, write code for 3 years, ship it to customers, and be really surprised when it didn't work great for them. With Windows 10, we moved to this insider model, where we're co-creating with customers in real time. Because of customer feedback, we went from shipping Windows every 3 years to twice a year, back to once a year, because of co-creating. Okay. So the same thing applies when you're co-creating with your teams, especially now. During the pandemic, I changed jobs. I changed jobs on June 1st of this year. I now head up accessibility tech for Microsoft. So I'm like the CTO of accessibility, which sounds real weird, but it's a very, very interesting job. Definitely the most challenging and complex thing I've ever done, including Windows Vista. So one thing that's been weird for me, and weird for anyone who's changed jobs, is I have never met my team, my reports. I've never met them in real life. These are all folks who used to live in Seattle and move somewhere in the middle of the pandemic, around April, May, once we realized, we're not going back into the office. So they moved to the far corners of the US. I've never met them. We've done great work for 100 days, and we decided to do an experiment. We're like, okay, if we can be remote for 100 days and never feel the need to meet, we're going to be remote for life. So we just crossed 100 days as of October 1st, and we are now remote for life. So they stay where they stay. They look at the paycheck and the tax and all the rigmarole that happens in the US if you move. And they decide, do you want to come back to Seattle, and should I get you an office in our new building, or do you want to be remote? And every single one of them, 100%, chose to be remote. I'm the only one on my team who lives in Seattle, which is really, really interesting. Now, my team's a little unique because they're all veterans of tech. They've mostly been around at Microsoft for 5+ years. So they know everyone. They're not the new hire who's lonely by themselves in their house alone. They don't know anyone. So they've got enough credibility to be able to lead their careers from where they live. But this is how we work. We run experiments for 3 months at a time, and we run hundreds of experiments for everything. What time to start meetings in the morning? Hint, not 8 a.m. What time to end meetings for the day? 3 p.m. What days do we not have meetings at all? Friday afternoons. We run these experiments for some period of time or another, and then we decide, do we like this? Do we hate this? How do we commit? In the picture is me and my peer, Kelly Ford. He is showing me how he has built a Power App to track our team's resources. I said, all right, we've got a SharePoint, you've got a bunch of stuff, how do we want to share this with others? He said, you're going to like this. I built a Power App. I'm like, yay, okay, Power App, good. Kelly is a screen reader user. He is completely 100% legally blind. So he used a screen reader to build a Power App, and I loved his process so much that we called up a camera crew and had them film it for Ignite. So definitely tune into Ignite in 2 weeks, November 2nd. But that is our team's demo on how we work. So during this period, the last, I would say 3 months, but really the last year and a half, I've learned some things that I'd love to share with you and assign you homework, because it's me, and there's always homework. So this is just a bit of backstory. This was new information for me. It might not be for you, but I'd like to focus on 2 specific things. One, there are over 1 billion people in the world with disabilities that we know of. That's only people who've raised their hand and said, yo, I have a disability. And this spectrum is constantly changing. That's 2. So some of these you already know. People with visual disability. So this is folks who are blind, and they may use a cane or a guide dog to get around. Then there's people who are losing their eyesight, like bifocals, like can't see so much in the dark. How many of you, when you go into a dark restaurant, have to turn on the camera phone flashlight to see the menu? Yeah, that's a lot of us. And then there's many, many, many of my man friends who are colorblind. 1 in 12 of you men are colorblind. That means there's like 50 colorblind people in this room. How many of you are colorblind that you know of? Raise your hands, raise them. Audience participation. Those are the ones who know. There are so many men who do not know they're colorblind. They go do a color test on Windows 11. We've got all new color filters. And they're like, am I colorblind? I'm like, yeah. Have I been all my life? Probably. Yeah, it's a very common thing. Second, hearing. So yes, people who are capital deaf, and they speak through an interpreter, or they use captions, or all of these things, or lip reading. But then there's people who are becoming hard of hearing. People who are starting to get hearing aids because they're starting to, lose their hearing. This is my father-in-law. He has to look directly at you to have a conversation. And if you talk to him like this, he will not be able to hear you. But he will not identify as having hearing loss. He's like, nope, I don't have a disability. I don't have hearing loss. I'm like, okay, that's fine, Ted. Third, I'm going to skip cognitive and go to speech right now. Speech are, yes, people who are mute who speak through an interpreter, but also people who have a stutter or speech impediment. This is people like the president of the US, Joe Biden. He's very open about his speech impediment. He's like, I have struggled with this my entire life. And that one movie all of y'all made about the guy with the speech impediment, and he learned to speak on the radio. I can't remember the name. The King's Speech, that's what it was. Speech impediment. Mobility, so this is, of course, people who are in wheelchairs, people who use, mobility devices, but if you're like me, arthritis. So one thing I noticed when I came in, I'm like, ooh, there's no ramp. I'm gonna have to climb stairs. I really hate stairs. So these are just things that I am now highly aware of that I didn't used to be 3 months ago. So two things I'd like to focus on here. One is cognitive. Cognitive is what we call neurodiversity. That is ADHD, dyslexia, autism. This is very prevalent in the tech industry. And the reason is people with neurodiversity tend to be incredibly good at 3D visualization, creativity, and innovation. They were usually quite shit at school, so they turned to a life of crime through coding. I love crime through coding. This is great news. This is me. I have dyslexia, and I honestly consider it to be kind of a pain sometimes, but actually it turned out to be okay. There are so many people getting diagnosed now who are in my age bracket because people's children are getting diagnosed. So their kids get diagnosed, neurologist says, you got it from somewhere, this is highly hereditary, let's test your parents. And sure as heck, the parent who's in the tech industry is like, you mean I wasn't just shit at school, I was just neurodivergent? There's a word for it? Yep, there's a label for it. The last one affects everyone, which is neural/mental health. Is there anyone in the room who has not been touched by mental health over the last 18 months? No hands. Any room that I give this spiel to, no hands, because it's either you or someone you love. This is anxiety. This is depression. This is all sorts of things that happen up in here. And mental health is physical health, because last time I checked, your brain is inside your body. So I've learned that, yes, my work in accessibility touches 1 billion people who've raised their hand and said, I have a disability. But 1 in 2 people have been impacted, for sure, by disability, neurodiversity, and mental health. My world looks like this. The reason you'll notice I don't put a lot of words in my slides. It's because I can't read them. It's because I realize there's lots of people in the audience who can't read them. So my world looks like this. Whenever I type something and I look at a screen, this is how it looks. I host a lot of our big conferences at Microsoft, Build, Ignite, Embass, all of them. And they love to put words on a teleprompter for me to read. And I'm like, uh-oh, don't know what that says. So we have to set up a rig. They set up my script with Immersive Reader, which is a learning tool, and they rig Immersive Reader into a headset, so it reads to me, and I say it out loud. And we've practiced and practiced and practiced, so now no one can really tell. But that was an interesting hybrid challenge that I had to figure out. Every single one of us has had to adjust to the hybrid world in some way or the other. And I believe one of the best things we can do is openly talk about it. Openly talk about our accommodations. My peer, this is Dave Dame. He is the director of Surface Hardware at Microsoft. He has cerebral palsy. So he uses a wheelchair, and recently he walked 5K. It was very, very challenging for him. He used walking sticks to do it. And at the Surface Hardware event a few weeks ago, he had the best quote, which is, "We're all going to be disabled someday. Just some of us beat you to it." So, I'm just telling you everything I've learned. So some of this, you're like, Donna, why are you telling me this? I'm like, I got to get it out of my head. I've learned that businesses who invest in accessibility kind of crush life out of businesses who do not. They have 86% higher revenue, their net income is nearly double, employee retention's 90%. Because of this, I decided to intensely focus on disability in my own business. I run a fashion line called Prima Donna Studios. I'm wearing it. Pockets, giant ones, ladies, I know. And I focus so much on people with disabilities. I had an autistic customer come and say, most textiles are really aggravating to my skin. Can you find something that isn't? I'm like, yep, bamboo. Why not offer that to everyone? We're going to offer that to everyone. I had a friend come and say, I'm an amputee, don't have a leg. Can you design something for me? I'm like, absolutely, we can do customization. Why not offer that to everyone? Let's offer it to everyone. So since we turned to a life of focusing on accessibility, including doing some things I'll share with you later, our SEO and hit rates on our website have gone up like 500%. Our sales have gone up, like my business partner will tell you, a effing lot. Keep doing that. I'm like, we will. So I saw it for myself, and it was really interesting to watch how it actually works. Weird. So it turns out there's over $1 trillion of economic power in the hands of people with disabilities. That makes sense, because it's a lot of people. People with disabilities tend to be incredibly brand loyal. They're like, this brand did the thing for me. We're going to continue to support this brand. Super technical, they've had to figure out all these hacks to just get through life, and extremely connected to each other. So if you have one person with autism really like your fashion line, now there's 30 people with autism really liking my fashion line. It's weird, but it's true. Pictured here is a runway show just from a month ago in Seattle. I went to see and decide if we were going to show there next year for my fashion line. The woman in the wheelchair is one of their star models. She is extremely good at what she does. I really like that. I'm like, okay, I am hiring you to do this. So this is the time for homework. There are 5 questions we ask daily, and I would love for you to ask the same next time you're making a decision for your business. 1, who am I building this for and with? Okay. When people say, I'm building this for new hires, we're like, which new hires? What are their names? Where do they live? Do they live with their parents, or do they live alone? Do they have roommates? Do they live in a flat? Are they in a dorm? You have to know the human's name and their actual environment. Once you know who you're building for, bring them into the design conversation itself. Don't design something and send it to them and say, does this work for you? Because if they say no, you're going to be mad that you have to change your product. If they say yes, they're trying to make you happy. So bring them in at the design phase. Get out the blank sheet of paper and co-design from the very, very beginning. Second, who am I unintentionally excluding? Often, we have to intentionally exclude people for whatever reason. This happens. We're like having a manager's offsite. Who are we excluding? Not managers. That's fair. You are intentionally excluding for a specific reason. That is okay. But think about, who are you unintentionally excluding? If I were to have an event and I were to, you'll notice I'm describing what's on the slides, right? I'm doing that because someone here might be blind, they might have low vision. And some people might not have the context of the UK. So that is why I am describing what's on the slide, because I don't want to unintentionally exclude someone that I don't mean to. So on the screen right now is a screenshot from Ignite conference last year. My peers Caruana and Rick are just talking about Power Platform, actually, and there's a sign interpreter there. So once you figure out who you're co-creating with, you want to extend that to other people. But as you extend, make sure you're not doing harm to populations you're not considering, right? The philosophy we use is do no harm. So not everyone has to participate in the same way, but make sure everyone has a way to participate. So, say I'm doing a podcast, and I'm actually going to be starting a podcast awkwardly because I'm bad at it. One of the things I'm going to do is always create a transcript and provide it. Because people like my boss, Jenny, are deaf. They can't hear podcasts, and they don't want to follow along with captions. So I'm just going to create a transcript. And that transcript is great for, yes, people who are deaf, but also people who don't have the attention span to listen to podcasts. So be aware, unintentionally excluding. Third question, who can experience this? This is, as you scale, step 1 was who you're co-creating with, 1. Step 2, make sure you're not excluding people. That's like, 5 people-ish. This is scale, mass scale. When you roll something out to your entire customer base, when you roll something out to your company or your division or your organization, who can experience this? One thing that has been very interesting is the Office team recently put this accessibility toolbar at the bottom of the Office apps. If you use Outlook or Word or PowerPoint, just look at the very bottom. It'll say like accessibility fine or accessibility investigate. If it says investigate, just click on it and see what happens. You'll just get the pane that shows like what accessibility stuff needs to be fixed. This was in the PowerPoint that I'm making right now. It was very meta, so I went through and fixed this. Figure out who you're excluding and what is the way that they are going to be excluded. Make sure everyone has a way to experience what you're creating, because the most number of eyeballs is actually good. So again, captions has been fascinating. Oh, I told someone this story last night, and I should tell all of you. If you put captions on video, your findability goes way up, because that's not metadata. So search engines will find your video more if you put captions on your video. That is cool. That's good business results. So yes, put it in for your deaf friends, put it in for your friends who speak a different language, but also put it in for, your bank account. Just do it. All right, what is available? This is Mr. Brian Dang, who could not be here, but he wants to. Be like Mr. Brian Dang, be a hero, okay? Whatever accommodations you've made for your hybrid work style, tell people. I found one of the biggest issues is we create a bunch of accommodations for hybrid work, especially with our teams, and it's like state secret number 0 for some reason. We forget to mention it, or we send out an email once a year and we're like, oh, how come no one knew about that? Like, true story, I wish I could screenshot this, but it would breach of privacy. There's a young Microsoft alias, and everyone's like, do we get therapy sessions? I hear we get therapy sessions. Do we get them? My manager's never talked to me about it. Someone's like, yeah, we get that mail once a year from benefits. Which mail? I don't know. And it was like, they were trying to debug this 13 people amongst themselves. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these poor young folk are trying to figure this out because their manager has never, ever talked to them about this. So if you're a leader, if you're a manager, if you're in any sort of position of leadership, tell people what the accommodations are, even if they're just things that seem extremely obvious to you. So, is there a gym that's available? Are there therapy sessions that are available? Is there a meditation app, a mood tracker app, sign interpreters, captions, mental health days? What is available? Like, I just taught someone the other day, in Teams, you turn on recording and you can start a transcript as well. So it creates a transcript on the side and then it saves it. And their mind was blown. They were like, I had no idea I could just look at a transcript of a Teams meeting. I'm like, yeah, why? We didn't ever tell anyone. So it's like a big secret. Take credit for the work you're already doing. Heck, take credit for the work we're doing. Just do it. Do it. We do not communicate enough. That is probably the biggest problem of the hybrid world. We think, oh my God, so much information overload. It's true. But if it's important and will help your team, over-communicate. All right. And then the fifth one, and this is the one no one likes to do, but you have to do it. I had to do it, so you have to do it. Which is, what are you sharing? About your own experience, about your own hybrid model, about your own mental health, So I've been doing a bunch of research on mental health in the workplace, and I'm creating a talk on it right now. And I've been looking at stats and data and numbers and all this stuff. 96% of employees across 1,500 companies, this all came from Care by Ginger, a startup, 96% wish their leadership would talk about mental health, as in their own mental health experiences and the accommodations that are available. And only 50% of leaders do it. Most of your team, 96% is a very large number, wish you would talk about it more. Wish you would share your own stories. So I openly share these. This picture is me, Zach Bowden, who's one of our Microsoft reporters, and Michael Gillett and Michael West. We went for dinner, had a proper rager, and we actually talked about mental health for quite a while. And everyone's now confessing their mental health stuff to me, which I love. They're like, I've dealt with depression, I've dealt with anxiety, my partner has, I have color blindness. And it's awesome. I love it. And I ask them the same thing. Are you telling your teams this? They're like, no, why would I tell my team? Like, you have to tell your team. Vulnerability is contagious. It's contagious. If you want your team to be open, you have to be open with them. It turns out that's the only way you're going to get your team to tell you what they need, is to tell them what you need. So, these are mine, and I tell my team probably once a month this exact same list of things. Ready? I am offline from 3:30 to 5 p.m. every day. I stop meetings 3:30 p.m., offline till 5. I will get back online later after 6, because I need to just stop being on calls from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Can't do anymore. I go take a walk, hit the gym, whatever. Friday, noon onward, no meetings, no teams, no nothing. Like, do not talk to me, I've disappeared. Now, very interesting, I put the policy in for my team, and the first week, they all complained. They were like, there's no way. What are we gonna tell our partners? We just don't do meetings on Fridays at noon onward? I'm like, yeah, you tell them. They were like, no, we can't do that. They're gonna think badly of us. I'm like, just do it. Just do it now. So I made them. We blocked the calendar, noon to 5, just blocked, no. Everyone threw a fit for about 2 weeks. By the end of 2 weeks, I said, we're just gonna do it for a month. If you hate it, we'll get rid of it. At the end of the month, they were like, we kind of like it. I'm like, okay, all right. This month, they were like, can we just have all of Friday to not do that? I'm like, wow, okay. Look at this, look at this. I'm like, I can't actually give you a 4-day work week without, getting sued by the US government for something random, because it's the US government. But we're now looking at Monday morning, 8 a.m. to noon, no meetings, no teams, nothing, because you can get your calendar under control. Who wants to work on a Sunday? No one. So we, the US, who are known for dropping dead at work of heart attacks, are trying to fix it. That means y'all should also try to fix it. So these are some of the accommodations that I enforce on my team. But also, when I take a OOF day for mental health, I'm very clear about it. I'm like, hey, I'm taking an OOF day, taking a sick day, this is mental health related, I will see you all tomorrow. I do it on a Wednesday, do it on a Friday, I'll do it on a Monday, but it's made it okay for them to do the same. This is the only way we're gonna get through hybrid. It's the only way. Because if we're not going to see each other to make sure we're okay every day, this is the way we're going to make sure. Being open, putting in accommodations, being extremely, extremely diligent about taking care of yourself first. This is a topic that me, Samit, and Dux Raymond Sai talked about at Ignite last January, weirdly. Whoa, future. One of the best things you can focus on to maximize productivity is your mental health. I now have data from my own team to prove it. They are happier, they're less in bad moods, they work better together, our productivity is through the roof after we started working less and being more, okay? Wild, but it's true. So that is my homework. I'm giving 2 other sessions on this. One, how to burn out, be gone. Everyone's faced burnout. I've come up with a formula to get rid of it because I've burned out. 4 p.m., we're having a roundtable talking about all the things with neurodiversity, diversity, et cetera, at the Media Center upstairs. So I hope to see you at them. Till then, keep calm, hybrid on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to all the speakers who were all fantastic. We have a really quick turnaround in here because the first session is in 2 minutes in this room and it needs to be split into 3 ballrooms. So there's sessions all day, 107 sessions in 17 rooms. The closing keynote with Keith Watling is here at 5 p.m. There are drinks in the atrium at 5:30, and there are still spaces on the pub quiz. If you want to join, go onto the website. But please leave very quickly. Thank you for coming and have a great day.